Good morning, everybody. Is my mic on here? Hello? There we go. Okay. We've got 3 handouts for everybody this morning. We have quite a bit to talk about, and they're up here. If we could have someone, Sylvester or Tony, if you could help maybe hand those out. There's 3 different things, and we will talk a little bit about those as we go on today with the presentation. Okay. All right. While they're handing those out, let me dive in. We'll get started. We have had 4 presentations over the last month or so about our school building project. And we are approaching sort of a very, very important key decision, which would be this Friday. So this is sort of the last presentation in this series. We'll probably have some other things we say later, but this is the last time to share some things with you in preparation for that meeting. So this is part 5. And just to remind you, part 1 was sort of a general introduction. Part 2, we talked about the history of the school. This was the previous school that was actually pretty much underneath an airport at Tri-City MBS Airport right now. We built this in about 3 months, 3 churches, and used it for a number of years, and the airport expanded, and they gave us a nice amount of money to buy us out, and we were able to buy the school over by Fashion Square Mall area. But that's not the purpose of the talk today. That was part 2. Part 3, we talked about the design of the building, and we will come back to that a little bit today because we have some homework to do. That was part 3. We talked about both the inside and the outside, the building design. This is proposed, not final yet. And part 4, 2 weeks ago, before the District 6 retreat at Camp Sabo, we talked about sort of the financial status, where are we today, and we mentioned that the estimated building cost is about, there's a big error bar on here, but we have both a contractor estimate and we have an architect estimate. So we have reason to believe the architect number could be too high and the contractor could be too low. So we took a number halfway between the two, and that's the $714,000. For now, that's our working target. And from selling the old school and donations for the Carroll Court property, which is now our Community Services Center, which those are school donations, that's about $327,000 that we have in hand today. So that helps quite a bit. That drops the needed amount down to $387,000. I put a question mark here. We do have some available funds both in the church and school accounts that are unallocated that could be put toward this project. That would help significantly if we would vote to move some of those funds there as well. $387,000 is the target. So today the question is, this is part 5, how do we raise that amount of money? And the we is each of us here, as well as friends of our church and maybe foundations and other churches that are part of that support our school as well, but we will have to shoulder most of the load. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the fundraising plan here, and this is in preparation. We have, this Friday, we have our business meeting where we will, for the first time, actually vote to do this project or not. So we started this about 5 years ago. We bought the property over here. 1 year before that, Midland took over the full operation of the school, with still some modest help from the other area churches. At that time, we were talking about building an addition. We needed to move the school to Midland, and so we actually started talking about an addition onto the church at that time. And then the property next door became available, and a year later, and we bought that with the idea we'd put the school there, and there's been some evolution. We talked about that in a previous presentation. I want to start with what I call breaking news. You're on the evening news, breaking news. Everything is breaking news, all right? We have some breaking news too. Even though we haven't officially launched fundraising, people have continued to give to the fund that we set up to purchase that property. So people in our congregation are still giving. Modestly, we'll have to step that up quite a bit. So I want to acknowledge that, but also this last week, Pastor Fred Calkins, everyone remember Fred? Some of you were around. This was 5 years ago. We had a meeting. He was our interim pastor. And he was led the charge to raise the money to purchase the property next to us. Well, he's been watching our little weekly information videos, the previous 4, and you'll probably watch this one, I'm sure, as well. And if you remember him, he is Mr. Energizer Bunny about the school. And he called me up and said, I'm just so excited about you guys are finally getting going here. And he was just raving. He was so excited. And he wanted me to communicate a couple things to you. First of all, he really wanted to be at this meeting this Friday. So I just got to be there. He said, this is my church family. I want to be involved in this decision. And he can't be here, so he apologized. But he also mailed a donation. He saw the need from some of the previous talks, so he actually mailed us a donation, and that's been given to our treasurer. So he's putting money where his mouth is, and to me it was a big boost. Before we even started doing things, he was excited and just wanted to do his best to help this project. And he said it was okay to mention his donation. I'm not going to mention the amount. That wouldn't be appropriate, but at least he gave something, and it was not insignificant, all right? That was exciting to me, and I think exciting to all of us. Okay, so this is probably the core of the presentation today. How do we sort of go about understanding how much everybody has to give? You can put out a total, but what does that mean for each family? And so this slide attempts to show that. I think most of us are familiar with the Adventist Church and the tithing system. We give 10% of income. Sometimes it could be an increase, technically, if you have some investment income, something like that. But 10% of the income that you have each year is generally given to tithe. And I won't go into how tithe is used. It's not used for the operation of the church. It's used generally to pay for ministry of pastors throughout the world. So we give separately for church projects. But that tithe is sort of an indicator. It's confidential. Only the treasurer sees those numbers, but it's sort of confidential measure of what your financial horsepower is. If you're paying a lot of tithe, that probably means you have a high income, and you would be able to give a little more. If you pay a modest tithe, it would mean you don't have a whole lot of income, and you're still being faithful, but it's sort of a measure of how much financial resources you have to contribute to a project like this. And I should say up front, there is no arm twisting here. Some people can give, some people can't. We're not going to publicize who gives and who doesn't. That's not the way we do things. It's all confidential. But if you can give and be part of the team, fantastic. And I would suggest, even if you can only give a small amount, that makes you a part of the team. And we need a great team spirit here for our church family to rally around this project. And so even if you can give a small amount, you say, well, it's not going to make that much difference because somebody else is going to pay most of that. No, that's not true. All of us working together is what makes a project succeed. All right, so tithe, 10% of income. If we look at the total cost of this, it's about 2 times our annual church tithe. Annual church tithe for Midland is about $200,000. We have a lot of faithful people that just give that 10%. So if we say, let's divide this 2x of the tithe into 2 parts. Let's say maybe half of a tithe, half of 200,000, might come from the church and school funds, which we talked about briefly. We expect some grants from some foundations. We'll work on that. We have people outside our church. So there's a number of sources that we could use. So this is just a wild guesstimate. Maybe 0.5x would come from those sources. Well, where does the other part of that 2.0x, the 1.5x, that would come from us? Okay, rough ballpark. So we can set some targets. 1.5 times tithe for our members of our church family. So does that mean everybody gives 1.5x? Absolutely not. A typical family might give that amount. A financially strong family, maybe they've saved money through their lives and have a little extra money they'd like to give to help. They could give more than 1.5x. And a financially struggling family might not be able to give 1.5. They could give less. So the idea here is a church family working together. Some people can make up for the difficulties other families may be having. So we work together toward a common goal. And again, if everyone can give, you're part of the team. You're part of the team even if you can't give at all. But there's some excitement about being part of a project like this. Okay, so does everyone understand that sort of? It's sort of a way to say, in the back of your mind, you're saying, okay, I know how much my tithe is or how much I make a year. And if you could take 1.5x, that would be sort of, if everybody did that, project would be paid for, all right? So what does that mean? I've got an example here. Sometimes the arithmetic is just a little complicated, so let's try to make it a little simpler for you. Let's say you're a typical family, whatever that is. Typical family in Michigan, the median, sort of the middle income for a family unit in Michigan is about $79,000, okay? Half the people make less than that, families make less than that in Michigan, half the people make more than that. So you can sort of, in your mind, you can say, well, where am I? Am I above or below that? But that's the median, that's the typical family in Michigan makes that much. I just picked a number of 50,000 as a round number. So let's say a family has an income of 50,000. How much would their tithe be? 5,000, 10%. The school building donation, if it's 1.5 times tithe, would be 7,500. Okay, that's pretty simple. And you can say, oh, that's quite a bit of money. But we have the ability, we could qualify for a loan from our Lake Union Conference organization. We have enough money on hand and our tithe is high enough. Today we could walk in and get a loan for all the rest without doing any fundraising. Well, that would be a little probably crazy, but we could do that. So because we can do that, we can spread that over, that 7,500 for this typical family could be spread over a period of time. So if that family spread it over 5 years, that would be $1,500 per year. 5 years would be the 7,500, and on a weekly basis, that would be $30 a week. So you break it down, that's a little bit more digestible number, okay? If you went out to eat, you might spend that much or more, all right, in a week. If you spread it over 2 years, that would be $5,000 per year. That would be $100 per week, all right? So, I'm not sure I got that. Anyway, that's, do you understand? I'm trying to give you an idea, so in the back of your mind, you know what your income is. You can sort of take 10% of that, multiply it by 1.5, and that would be sort of, if you're a typical family, that's what you would give. Does that mean you have to? Absolutely not. Does it mean you should give more? If you can, fantastic. If you can't give that much, fantastic too. Just help as best you can. So we're down to sort of what some people might call the brass tacks of doing a fundraising project. This is sort of setting some targets that are family targets, all right? How do we do that? Obviously people could just give funds outright, just put it in a tithe envelope and mark it new building project, new school building, and it would go to this project, right? But because we have people some may like to spread this out over a period of time, or we have to look at how large a loan would we need to get and for how long, it would help us tremendously to have people sort of make a commitment up front. Not necessarily to pay it all right now, but to make a commitment of what they think they could realistically pay. So in your packet, there is a form. This is just a part of the form. And it basically says, it's a pledge form. It says, I or we, could be a family unit, pledge the following financial contribution to Midland Seventh-day Adventist Church for building an addition onto the church for the Tri-City Seventh-day Adventist School. So there's 3 boxes you could check here. The first box is, I'd just like to give some money and be done with it. And actually for the project, getting the money sooner is better than spreading it out, because we have to pay interest if we spread it out through a loan. So giving sooner is better. But if you want to just write a check for a month you think you can, you don't have to do that today, but you could check this box and say, over the next month, I commit to giving this amount. So we can start to plan a little bit. The other option is to take the pledge route. It says a total pledge of, in that other case, it was $7,500, and over 5 years, that would be $1,500. So I would put in $1,500 in each one of these boxes to spread it over 5 years, okay? Why do we need that? Again, we want to give people the opportunity to ease the load a little bit by spreading it out, but for planning purposes, it helps us to know that people are committed to giving the money eventually. That will help us understand how large of a loan we would need, all right? So those are forms that you each have a copy. The plan is take that home, pray about it, talk to your spouse, whatever you'd like to do. We'll be sending this out by email to our church distribution list as well. The idea is to bring that form, completed form, back to the meeting on Friday evening. And during that meeting, we will collect those forms and we'll tally it up and we'll share with everybody how much has been pledged or to be contributed. All right? Sort of the first step. Does it mean you can't give after that? Absolutely not. But a first step, we would like to have everybody, pool together and let's see what we can raise, as we kick off this fundraising program. All right. So again, the message is, if you don't have to do this, you don't have to pledge, you could just give money, but if you would like to fill out this form, it would help us tremendously in planning. All right? So that's what I just said. Bring the completed pledge form on August 28th. Again, that will be confidential. Only the people that are sort of leading the program and the church treasurer would be seeing those pledges. Okay. In the spirit of being completely open, what is our plan for the meeting on Friday evening, 6:30 p.m. at the church this Friday evening? This is what the plan is, all right? This is part of communicating. Our plan is that we will spend, well, let me back up. There are some other topics on the agenda well, so this will be the school building project portion of the meeting. So the first part of the school discussion would be just a discussion as a church family. How is God leading us? Do people think this is a good idea? How has God led us in the past? Pray about it this week. What is God touching your heart to say about this project? It could be, I would be disappointed, but it could be we get a consensus, no, we can't afford this, we don't want to do it. I'd be sad about that, but this is the meeting where we're going to decide that. I would hope that we would come back and say, hey, look at all the things God has led us to this point, and look at the ministries we can do with this, and we would vote to proceed with the program. So after that discussion, there would be a vote. This is sort of the suggested motion. We will see what happens at the meeting, but it would be the Midland Seventh-day Adventist Church family, relying on God's leading votes to proceed with the Tri-City Seventh-day Adventist School addition. Fundraising and creation of construction documents are included in this motion. So this is the motion to go forward or not, okay? And we will be considering that after we have this church family discussion, all right? Third step would we will collect the pledge forms at that point. If we vote to go ahead, then the fundraising is initially kicked off, and we will collect the pledge forms, and we will report back to the group and hopefully celebrate how God is blessing us. All right, that will be reported to the meeting. And the third point is quite important as well. This is a church family project. This isn't a little committee or the church board or someone doing this. This is a church family project. So we're at a point where we have preliminary plans, conceptual drawings, and you have a copy of those in the handout that's been given to you before, but we wanted you to have it this time. Why do you need it now? Because the fourth part of this school discussion at the meeting will be, this is our chance as a church family to talk about those. Are there some things we'd like to change? Does anyone have some ideas that might make it better? We've had a few ideas actually come in just from the videos we've sent out. People looked at the plan and said, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So now is the time to get that input from everybody, because once we turn it over to the architect, we'll be paying big dollars to have them make final construction documents. We don't want to be changing after, halfway through that. Before we turn it over, this is the time to get everybody's wisdom into the plan, and we have a building committee that can review everyone's ideas and make some recommendations to the architect. So this is the time to really talk about, is this the way we want it to be? My guess it probably is pretty much, but there may be some tweaks to it that we want to consider. So this is the church family input into the building plan. All right. To wrap things up, thanks for your attention. I've showed this before, but our overall plan is to have a dedicated classroom for our school. We know the blessings that brings to our students and families and their teachers. Something that's dedicated to that and has attributes that allow it to actually function optimally as a classroom. But the other thing we need to keep in mind is that this project is restoring our activity center back to its previous usage capability. Right now, half of it's school, which we're thrilled to be able to have the school there, but there are a lot of things that we would like to do in there we can't because we don't have the full use of that activity center. And to tear down the school, Brenda looks at me with a bewildered look. If we were to tear down the school so we could have a giant potluck, that's probably not a good idea, given the the great design that classroom has. We'd love to be able to have big events now where we can use that whole room again. So that's the other half of this project. And finally, I just want to say thanks to God for our school. And just a final pitch, please come to this meeting. We need your input. We need pledges. We need ideas about the plans. This is an important meeting. We are going to make a decision. The first decision ever of do we go forward with this project. And a lot of effort and time spent, but now is decision time. And so this Friday evening is very important. Just really hope and pray that you will be there. Thank you.